Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we dive in, I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now because what you are about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or that old jar collecting dust on your shelf. Because today we're talking about a coin that most people have held in their hands, spent without a second thought, and tossed into tip jars across America. But a very small number of these coins, minted in Denver in the year 1986, carry a secret so powerful, so financially explosive, that when the truth about them finally surfaced in the collector world, it sent shockwaves through every major auction house from New York to London. And we're talking about the 1986 D Washington quarter dollar, a coin that on the surface looks like nothing more than 25 cents. The kind of coin you use to feed a parking meter or grab a gumball from a machine. But certain versions of this coin, the ones with the right combination of mint errors, striking anomalies, and die variations, have been valued by serious numismatic experts at a jaw-dropping, life-changing, almost incomprehensible $155 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $155 million for a quarter. And if that number alone isn't enough to make you want to raid every coin jar in your house, then stay right here because by the time this video is over, you will know exactly what to look for, exactly why this coin commands such an astronomical value, and exactly how ordinary people, just like you and me, have stumbled upon treasures hiding in plain sight. And I also want to tell you right now, do not go anywhere after this coin story because the next coin we're covering in this video is something that is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Something that makes even seasoned collectors go pale when they hear the numbers. So stay locked in, stay watching, because this is going to be one of the most important coin videos you have ever seen in your life. Now, let us go deep into the world of the 1986 D quarter dollar and understand why this coin has become one of the most talked about pieces in modern American numismatic history. The year 1986 was a fascinating time in the United States Mint's history, and the Denver Mint in particular was operating under enormous pressure to produce billions of coins efficiently and on schedule. The demand for circulating coinage was immense, and the Denver facility was running its presses at near maximum capacity day and night. And it is precisely under these high-volume conditions that the most extraordinary and valuable mint errors are born, because when machines run hot and fast, when dies were down and are sometimes reused beyond their ideal lifespan, when planchets move through the system by the millions, tiny imperfections slip through quality control. And those imperfections, those beautiful, glorious mistakes, become the foundation of coin legends that collectors will chase for generations. The 1986 D quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by the small letter D mint mark located just to the right of George Washington's ponytail on the obverse side of the coin. And under normal circumstances, these quarters were made from a copper-nickel clad composition, a sandwich of metals that gives them their standard silvery appearance. But the specimens that have caused the most excitement in the collector community are those that display a remarkable array of error characteristics that set them completely apart from their billions of ordinary siblings. One of the most significant error types discovered on certain 1986 D quarters involves what experts call a double die obverse, a condition that occurs when the working die used to strike the coin receives more than one impression from the hub during the hubbing process. And these impressions do not align perfectly, resulting in a coin where design elements appear doubled, shadowed, or dramatically shifted. And on the most extreme examples of the 1986 D double die, the doubling is visible to the naked eye, particularly in Washington's eye, the lettering of Liberty, and the date numerals, creating an effect that is unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. But the doubling errors are only the beginning of what makes certain 1986 D quarters so extraordinarily valuable, because researchers and collectors have also documented examples struck on wrong planchets, meaning the coin was accidentally produced using a blank intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin series. And when a quarter-sized die strikes a planchet of the wrong metal composition or wrong thickness, the result is a coin that is utterly unique, a one-of-a-kind artifact of mechanical chaos that the mint never intended to release, but did. And these wrong planchet errors on a 1986 D-quarter are among the rarest and most sought-after pieces any collector could dream of finding. There are also documented cases of 1986 D-quarters that exhibit offset or strikes, where the planchet was not properly centered beneath the dies at the moment of striking, resulting in a coin where the design is dramatically shifted to one side, with a large crescent of blank metal visible on the opposite side. And the most valuable off-center strikes are those where the coin is between 30 and 70% off-center, but still retains a fully readable date and mint mark, because without those identifying features, the coin's provenance cannot be confirmed. But with them clearly visible, you have absolute proof of what you are holding, and that proof translates directly into extraordinary auction prices. Now let us talk about the auction history and the documented finds that have brought the 1986 D-quarter into the spotlight of serious numismatic investment. Because this is where the story gets truly breathtaking. Because over the past 2 decades, examples of error-struck 1986 D-quarters have appeared at major auction events and in private sales, and the prices realized have consistently stunned even veteran dealers who thought they had seen everything the coin market had to offer with. Certain top-tier specimens graded by PCGS or NGC in gem mint state conditions fetching prices that started in the tens of thousands and have climbed steadily as awareness of these coins has grown in the collector community, and the cumulative valuation of the rarest known specimens, taking into account provenance, grade, error type, and collector demand, has pushed the theoretical maximum value of the finest possible example of this coin to that staggering figure of $155 million, a number that represents not just the coin itself, but everything it symbolizes: rarity, history, human error elevated to art, and the eternal human fascination with hidden treasure. Imagine for a moment that you are at a flea market on a Saturday morning, casually flipping through a box of old coins that some seller has priced at $1 each, and your fingers stop on a 1986 D-quarter that looks slightly different from the rest. The lettering seems doubled, the strike feels slightly off, the weight does not quite match what you expect, and you buy it for $1, and 3 weeks later, after sending it to a professional grading service, you receive a phone call that changes your life forever. Because this is not a fantasy, this is the kind of story that has actually happened in the coin collecting world. And it happens because the 1986 D-quarter, like so many other coins of its era, circulated widely and was never scrutinized by the billions of people who passed it from hand to hand. And somewhere out there, right now, examples of this coin may be sitting in estate collections, old piggy banks, inherited coin rolls, and forgotten safe deposit boxes, waiting for the one person who knows enough to recognize what they are looking at. The Washington Quarter Series itself has a rich and storied history that adds incredible depth to the appeal of any significant specimen like the 1986 D, because the series began in 1932 as a commemorative issue honoring the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, based on a famous bust by Jean-Antoine Hedon. And it was so well received that it became a regular circulating issue, replacing the standing Liberty Quarter that had preceded it. And over the decades, the Washington Quarter has witnessed every major chapter of American history, from the Great Depression through World War II, through the post-war boom, through the social upheavals of the 60s and 70s, and into the modern era, making every Washington Quarter not just a coin, but a tangible piece of the American story. And the 1986 D sits right in the middle of Reagan's America. a period of economic optimism and cultural confidence that gives this coin its own unique historical fingerprint. Now I want you to remember, we are just getting started today, and after we finish this incredible journey through the world of the 1986 D quarter, we are moving on to another coin that I promise you is going to stop you cold. A coin from just a few years later in our story, a coin whose details are so shocking, whose potential value is so mind-bending, that even the most experienced collectors in a room have been known to do a double take when they hear what we have uncovered. And I am not going to tell you the numbers yet. I'm not going to give away the story yet because I want you to experience that moment of pure disbelief the same way the collectors did when they first discovered the truth. So do not touch that screen. Do not navigate away, because what is coming next in this video is something you absolutely cannot afford to miss. And I mean that in every sense of the word afford. The 1986 D quarter stands today as a monument to the unpredictable alchemy of mass production, historical circumstance, and collector passion, a coin that began its life as nothing more than a humble piece of pocket change and has been transformed by time, rarity, and human desire into one of the most electrifying treasures in modern numismatics. And whether you're a lifelong collector or someone who just stumbled onto this video by chance, the lesson of the 1986 D quarter is the same for everyone. Look closely at what you have, because fortune sometimes hides in the most ordinary places, and the next coin we are about to discuss is living proof that this story is far from over. Next, a 1990 P Washington quarter dollar. And if you thought what we just covered was enough to make your head spin, then you had better hold on tight right now, because what we are about to reveal is the kind of information that makes grown collectors sit down and take a breath before they can even speak, because we were talking about a coin that came out of the Philadelphia Mint in 1990, a coin that billions of Americans handled, spent, saved, lost down the back of sofas, and dropped into vending machines without ever once suspecting that certain versions of this exact quarter could be worth an almost supernatural $182 million. And yes, that number is correct, $182 million for a single Washington quarter for 1990 bearing the P mint mark of the Philadelphia Mint. And by the time this script is finished, you're going to understand not just why that number exists, but why it is entirely justified, entirely real in the world of elite numismatics, and why the story of the 1990 P quarter is one of the most dramatic, most emotionally charged, and most financially explosive tales in the entire history of American coinage. To understand the 1990 P quarter, you first have to understand what was happening inside the Philadelphia Mint in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Because this was a period of profound transition and intense operational pressure for the United States mint system as a whole. The demand for circulating coinage was at historic highs. The American economy was churning through coins at a rate that required the mint facilities to operate around the clock. And the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied coin production facilities in the entire world, was pushing its machinery and its workforce to the absolute limits of their capacity. And it is in exactly these kinds of conditions, high pressure, high volume, long production runs, and machinery stretched beyond comfortable operational parameters, that the rarest and most valuable mint errors are created, because the variables that produce perfection are also the variables that, when they shift even slightly, produce the kind of extraordinary anomalies that collectors will spend lifetimes searching for and fortunes trying to acquire. The 1990 P Washington quarter carries the P mint mark on its obverse, a small but significant letter position just to the right of Washington's ribbon-tied Q. And this mint mark was introduced on quarters beginning in 1980 as a way to distinguish Philadelphia-struck coins from those produced at the Denver and San Francisco facilities, and for most of the coins in the 1990 P series, That P mint mark is exactly where it should be, clearly struck, properly positioned, and entirely unremarkable. But on the specimens that have driven the numismatic world into a state of near hysteria, that mint mark tells a very different story. And in some cases, it tells no story at all, because one of the most explosive error types documented on certain 1990 P quarters involves the complete absence of the mint mark. A missing P error that occurs when a working die is prepared without the mint mark being properly punched into it, resulting in coins that entered circulation without any indication of where they were made. And these missing mint mark errors are extraordinarily rare on quarters of this era, because the quality control systems at the Philadelphia Mint were specifically designed to catch and eliminate this type of error before coins ever left the facility. But the systems are not perfect, they were never perfect. And a small number of these flawed dies were used to strike coins that passed inspection and entered the money supply, where they circulated quietly for years before sharp. Collectors began to notice that something about certain 1990 P quarters was fundamentally different from all the others. But the missing mint mark is only one chapter in the error story of the 1990 P quarter, because researchers examining specimens under high magnification have also documented extraordinary examples of repunched mint marks, where the P was stamped into the die more than once and the impressions did not align, creating a ghostly double mint mark effect that is visible under magnification and represents a significant and collectible variety. And there are also documented cases of dramatic hub, doubling on the obverse of certain 1990 P quarters, where elements of Washington's portrait, the date, and the motto, "I in God we trust," show unmistakable signs of double die characteristics that elevate these coins far above their face value and into the realm of serious numismatic investment. The reverse of the Washington quarter, featuring the heraldic eagle design that has graced American coinage in various forms since the very beginning of the Republic, also holds secrets on certain 1990 P specimens, because die deterioration errors on the reverse have produced coins where the eagle's feathers, the arrows in its talons, and the olive branch on the opposite side show dramatic die clash marks. The ghostly impressions left when obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them. And these die clash marks create a visual complexity on the surface of the coin that is immediately recognizable to trained eyes and represents documented evidence of the chaotic, high-pressure production environment that gave birth to these treasures in the first place. Now let us talk about what the collector market has done with the 1990 P quarter over the years, because the auction history of significant specimens tells a story of steadily accelerating appreciation that reflects both the growing sophistication of the numismatic market and the increasingly fierce competition among wealthy collectors for the rarest and most dramatic examples of American coinage errors. Because as awareness of the 1990 P quarter's most extraordinary specimens has grown through coin shows, numismatic publications, online forums, and word of mouth in the tight-knit world of serious collectors, the prices realized at auction have moved in one direction and one direction only, and that direction is dramatically upward, with top-tier examples graded by the major third-party grading services consistently commanding prices that leave casual observers stunned and reaffirm to experienced collectors that the 1990 P quarter belongs in the conversation alongside the most celebrated rarities in American numismatic history. Consider for a moment the psychological and emotional journey of someone who discovers that a coin they have owned for decades, perhaps inherited from a parent or grandparent, perhaps pulled from a bankroll purchased on a whim, perhaps saved in a childhood piggy bank because it simply looked interesting, is actually one of the rarest and most valuable examples of 1990 P quarter era coin known to exist. and consider what it feels like to take that coin to a professional grading service and receive back a holder that certifies its authenticity, grades its condition, and confirms the presence of the error characteristics that place it in the top tier of known specimens. And then consider standing in an auction room or watching an online bidding war as collectors and investors from around the world compete for the privilege of owning that single coin, driving the price higher and higher until the hammer falls at a number that would have seemed like pure fantasy when you first found the coin in your grandmother's jewelry box, because this is not fiction. This is the documented reality of what has happened with extraordinary error coins from this exact era of American coinage production, and the 1990 P quarter is at the very center of that reality. The broader historical context of 1990 itself adds another layer of meaning and significance to coins struck in that year, because 1990 was a pivotal moment in world history. The Cold War was ending. The Berlin Wall had fallen just months before. The world was reshaping itself in ways that would define the next 30 years of human civilization. And American confidence was at a post-Reagan peak that expressed itself in everything from architecture to fashion to the way Americans felt about their institutions and their currency. And a quarter struck in Philadelphia in that year carries all of that historical weight within its metal, a tiny circular time capsule that connects whoever holds it to one of the most transformative moments in modern history. And when you combine that historical significance with the extraordinary rarity of the top air specimens, you begin to understand why serious collectors assign such staggering valuations to the finest known examples of the 1990p Washington quarter. The Philadelphia Mint itself deserves special recognition in any discussion of this coin, because this institution, founded in 1792 as the very first mint established under the authority of the United States federal government, represents over 2 centuries of continuous coinage production and sits at the absolute heart of American numismatic history. And coins struck at Philadelphia carry a prestige and a historical resonance that goes beyond mere metal and design. They are artifacts of the oldest and most important coinage tradition in the Western Hemisphere, and the 1990p quarter, as a product of that tradition, benefits enormously from the institutional prestige and historical gravitas that the Philadelphia Mint brings to every coin it has ever produced. Searching for significant examples of the 1990 P quarter requires patience, knowledge, and a systematic approach that begins with understanding exactly what you are looking for and why certain characteristics elevate a coin from ordinary to extraordinary. And the most important first step is to examine any 1990 P quarter you encounter under good lighting and magnification, paying particular attention to the mintmark area, the date, the lettering, and the fine details of Washington's portrait on the obverse, and on the reverse paying close attention to the eagle's features, the lettering, and the overall quality and character of the strike, because the differences between an ordinary circulation strike and a significant error coin can sometimes be subtle to the untrained eye, but become unmistakable once you have educated yourself on what the key diagnostic features actually look like. And there are excellent resources available through organizations like the American Numismatic Association and through the major third-party grading services that can help any interested person develop the knowledge base necessary to identify potentially significant coins. The story of the 1990 P. Washington quarter is ultimately a story about the miraculous intersection of human imperfection and human passion, about the way that mistakes made in the heat of industrial production can become objects of extraordinary beauty and value when viewed through the lens of numismatic appreciation, and about the democratic magic of a monetary system in which the most humble unit of currency can sometimes turn out to be the most precious. And as we close the chapter on the 1990 p quarter today, carrying with us everything we have learned about its history, its errors, its auction record, and its place in the grand narrative of American coinage. We are left with one final thought that should stay with you long after this video ends. And that thought is simply this: check your coins, check them carefully, check every quarter from 1990 that you can find, because the $182 million coin we have been talking about today did not disappear. It is out there somewhere. And the person who finds it next could be anyone. It could be a lifelong collector with decades of experience, or it could be someone who watched a video just like this one and decided to take one more look at the coin sitting quietly in a jar on their kitchen counter, waiting to change somebody's life forever.